Blue R1 HD might just be the first disposable smartphone, and with this $50 price tag, you might think it was a slow, laggy, cheap plastic piece of crap. You, my friend, would be wrong. So for the college kids, for the little kids, for your older parents, or even your dog, the Blue R1 HD is actually a very decent phone. Stay tuned and I'll tell you why.
Welcome to the channel. This is TechnoScope.
My history with Android began in 2010 with the original Samsung Galaxy S, the AT&T variant called the Captivate. Since then, I've owned nearly every top spec phone on the market until my boycott of the Note 5. Now I own the Nexus 6P, which is a fantastic device, and despite the fact the Nexus 6P is nearly half the price of the Galaxy Note, you could literally buy 10 Blue R1 HDs for the price of the cheapest Nexus 6P. So you can understand why my expectations of this phone were quite low. But to my surprise, replacing my Nexus for a week wasn't really the pain I thought it would be. In fact, it was quite a pleasant surprise. So what's the catch? Well, there is one. But in my opinion, it's probably the best catch you could ever wish for. The price of the phone is $50 if you have an Amazon Prime membership. Otherwise, the price is $100. For those of you with Amazon Prime, I know you get it. I didn't really get it until I got it. For those of you without Prime, I'll explain. Amazon Prime changed my life. The original reason I signed up was to get the free shipping when I ordered the original components of my recording studio. With all the things I ordered, the savings on shipping paid for the membership a few times over. If you sign up as a student, which I am, the Amazon Prime membership is only $50 a year. That $50 gives you free 2-day delivery on most Prime products. This was a game changer for me because my biggest turnoff ordering online before Prime was always the lengthy delivery times. Recently, they've started offering next day delivery on some items if you spend at least $35. And the real kicker that really made me fall in love with Prime is that some items can be delivered on the same day. Sometimes for free, sometimes for an extra charge of around $6. Prime also has weekend deliveries, but not just Saturday, Sunday too. I've also received deliveries on holidays like Independence Day and once on Thanksgiving. I felt bad for the delivery driver, but I thought it was cool to get a package when I really needed it. Obviously, the level of delivery service you get will vary depending on your location. But here in Dallas, it's pretty awesome. Also, I didn't really go into the other services you get, like their video streaming service, their music streaming service, Prime Now, Dash, Photos, Pantry, Prime exclusive deals, and the list goes on. Prime is absolutely worth the cost in my opinion, and getting the $50 student Prime membership makes the phone $50 as well. Back to the phone. So out of the box, the R1 HD comes with Android Marshmallow 6.0, meaning until this week it had the latest version of Android installed, placing it ahead of many high-end devices sold by Samsung, LG, and HTC. With the exception of a few Amazon apps, this is a vanilla version of Android. There's no manufacturer skin, and it uses the stock Android launcher. In fact, it really doesn't get any purer than this. Also, if you were wondering, this is not an Amazon Fire device. The phone has the Play Store and fully supports Google Apps. The CPU is a 1.3 GHz quad-core Cortex A53 by MediaTek with the Mali T720 GPU. The 8GB model has 1GB of RAM and the 16GB model has 2GB of RAM. get the 16 gigabyte model. The model I have here is the 16 gigabyte model, which has 5.12 gigabytes of space used fresh out of the box. Both variants have a micro SD slot which supports up to 64 gigabytes of additional storage, and if you get the 8 gigabyte model, you will definitely need it. Either way, get the 16 gigabyte model. On the front, the R1 HD has a 5-inch 720 by 1280 IPS display protected by Corning Gorilla Glass 3. The color of the screen is good but not great. It won't be winning any contest versus Samsung's AMOLED display. Still, in most situations, I found the screen quality acceptable. The resolution is low enough that you can see the scan lines, especially when the phone is near your face. But I found on most days, on most day-to-day use, that this is far beyond acceptable, especially given the phone's price tag. One of the common characteristics of IPS panels is their ability to produce very bright images, and the R1 is no exception to this rule. The brightness of the display is so powerful, I had to move the slider down to around the 20% range for average indoor use. Doing so also improves the image quality significantly, as images don't look washed out. While the phone has adaptive brightness, which is disabled by default, I found in bright sunlight I sometimes had to move the slider back up. However, even in the brightest of conditions, I rarely move the slider much beyond the 50 to 60% range. As with most IPS panels, the screen does well at extreme viewing angles, because people look at their phones from 178 degrees. Except in dark rooms, you will likely run into glare problems from the Gorilla Glass before you reach an angle too extreme to be acceptable. The R1 has a non-removable lithium-ion 2500 mAh battery. In my opinion, that's a little on the small side, but you have to be realistic with a few things here. This phone isn't likely for power users like myself. The average user isn't going to have 50 apps checking for updates on a regular basis, isn't going to be constantly checking business numbers, isn't going to be constantly replying to emails and editing documents. With all of that said, battery life was never really a concern while I was testing the phone. It does die noticeably quicker than the 3450 mAh battery in my Nexus 6P, but not enough to make it a problem. The smaller battery capacity also means the phone charges quicker, so it doesn't have to stay on the charger nearly as long. Also, if all of that doesn't ease your fears about battery life, at $50 you could buy multiple of these phones and just swap them out as they die. The protruding rear camera is an 8 megapixel sensor with autofocus and f2.0 aperture, paired with a single LED flash. In video mode, the camera will shoot up to 1080p at 30 frames per second. The camera is said to have a 4P lens, which means it uses 4 plastic lenses. The front-facing camera is a 5 megapixel shooter, amazingly paired with its own LED flash. It also shoots 1080p videos as well. The quality is not the best by any means, but for a $50 phone, the images these two cameras capture are definitely acceptable. The photos are pretty much what you would expect. The colors are not very vivid and the contrast is not that great. And the only time I was able to get a sharp focus was when I was taking photos in extremely bright light. Anything less would produce a picture with a lot of noise, which creates a soft focus or blurry effect. The flash gets the job done, and while not necessary most of the time, I had to use it in this photo taken in a very bright store to get the rear GTX 1080 to be visible. Video was decent, but I wouldn't shoot a documentary or any important videos with it. It's perfect for capturing a moment while on the go, but if you need to capture a moment accurately and with more detail, definitely take a dedicated camera. The camera offers 7 other modes, which will help you get the photo you want. Professional mode gives you a little more control over the camera's functions to get a photo more to what you want. Like any unlocked phone, the R1 is a GSM phone. It works with carrier services such as AT&T, T-Mobile, and other services which use a SIM card for operation. This means the device should also work with services like Metro PCS, which is owned by T-Mobile, and Cricket, which is owned by AT&T. There are also other services like TracFone and Ting, which should work, but check with your carrier for compatibility. The R1 can hold up to 2 micro SIM cards, which definitely has its advantages. Perhaps you have a very cheap voice-only service which is local to you, and your friends or family do not mind if you piggyback their data plan. You can use the voice SIM for phone calls, and the second SIM could be dedicated to your data services. Or perhaps you do something more travel oriented and you frequent different countries. With dual SIM slots, you will no longer have to change cards. You can simply switch service providers in the menu. Keep in mind, as with most GSM phones, it is not compatible with Sprint or Verizon. You will also need to remember this phone is designed to work with micro SIMs. Most flagship phones today use nano SIMs, so I had to spend a few more bucks on an adapter kit to get my SIM to work with the R1. My music source in my SUV is my phone, and with a Prime membership, you will also get access to Amazon's music streaming service. I use Bluetooth to connect my phone to my Pioneer head unit. As my phone for the review period, the R1 had to step in to the role vacated by my Nexus 6P. The R1's Bluetooth 4.0 reliably connected to my head unit every trip I took, worked just fine during phone calls. In fact, it connected to my head unit more reliably than my Nexus, with no sudden disconnects or loss of sound in the music. However, it did lack the on-screen title info, meaning if I wanted to know what was playing, I had to unlock the phone and turn on the phone each time, navigate to the music player. I'm not surely tired what the specs of the Wi-Fi radio are, but I know for a fact the R1 cannot find my 5 GHz network. If I had to guess, I would say it has an 802.11n 2.4 GHz radio. Not exactly the best thing around, but it always got the job done, and I never had any issues streaming YouTube videos. Apps were notably slow to download and install, however, but I think that's actually a result of the slower hardware used in this budget device. NFC. NFC doesn't exist on this phone. You won't be using it to beam anything. You won't be using it to tap to pay with Android Wallet. Sorry. So have you been convinced by the things you've seen so far? This phone actually feels extremely solid in the hand. There's no body flex, no loose fitting parts, and for that matter, nothing that actually feels cheap about this device. The Gorilla Glass is tapered ever so slightly on the edges, giving the screen a wonderfully smooth feel that makes you want to molest it endlessly. The rear of the phone has a semi-rubber feel, which makes gripping and holding the phone without dropping it a breeze. Something I couldn't say for my Nexus with this all aluminum back. Premium materials are great until you drop said device and premium metals make contact with premium street cement. During the review period, The only time I ever dropped the phone was while laying down and browsing the web. The design is great. The phone has an understated design, which really makes it look more premium than it is. There's no gaudy look, no flashiness here. Simple black front, chrome text logo, dark gray sides, and a black back. It looks like a solid bar of great tech, and I defy you to put it next to a flagship phone and say it appears to be a lesser device. The 3 phone buttons are all on the right. Reverse order from the Nexus, with the volume buttons up top and the power and lock button below. The buttons protrude from a beveled edge that is nicely designed, adding to its already premium look. The body of the phone is 5.63 by 2.78 by 0.33 inches, or 143 by 70.7 by 8.5 millimeters. It's definitely not the smallest phone on the market, but in this day of 6-inch phones, it's not nearly the largest either. The 5-inch screen and narrow bezels make the phone the perfect size for holding comfortably for hours on end. If there is a single letdown on this phone, it's the speaker. The speaker at maximum volume is far softer than I'm used to. The Galaxy Note phones have some of the loudest speakers on the market. The Nexus, while better sounding and in stereo, are not quite as loud. However, the front-facing design helps it tremendously. The R1, however, has a single rear-facing speaker, which is under the rear cover and then under a cover of its own. When away from home, it was nearly impossible to watch anything on this device and actually hear what was being played. Luckily, the phone still has a 3.5 millimeter jack, so traditional or Bluetooth headphones will work with it. Also, it has an OK vibration motor that will help you feel the ringer while it's in your pocket. The sound quality isn't anything to write home about, but it gets the job done in an indoor environment. The real trick to this phone is being surprisingly cheap, but it doesn't quite end there. The reason this phone is $50 with the Prime membership is because Amazon is paying you $50 to show ads on your lock screen. When you turn on your phone from a sleep state, you will see a different ad each time you awake the phone. The good news is this method is very unobtrusive, and once you've passed the lock screen, you don't see anything else on the device. If you're curious to what this looks like, the Amazon Fire tablet I reviewed last year uses the same ad method. To see that video, click here. So what are the cons of this device? Honestly, not many. The camera works but isn't great, and the speaker leaves something to be desired. The screen's resolution is low enough to see the individual lines, but it's one of those things you forget almost immediately while using the device. The price of the device, even at full price, is definitely a bargain. For the first time ever, I feel there's truly a disposable smartphone on the market. If there was ever a time you needed an emergency device, a device for someone prone to breaking screens, a device you'd want to give to a person that isn't a power user, or if you just want a backup device to get a change of scenery every now and then, I think the Blue R1 HD might be for you. Here are my point breakdowns by category, with 1 being the lowest, 3 being neutral, and 5 being the highest. Software I gave a 5, performance a 3, display a 3, battery a 3, camera a 2, radio capabilities a 4, build design and quality a 4, the speaker a 1, gimmicks a 2, price a 5. And for a final rating, I give this device a 3.2. And at $50, 3.2 might as well be a 5. Hey guys, I hope you really liked that video. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up and leave a comment down below. Also, I would love for you to become part of the Scoper Nation family, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, check out my links. I have an Instagram page, and it has all the behind the scenes footage, all the behind the camera footage, and a whole bunch about the world of Technoscope. Also, hit me up on Twitter. I'm very social, and I love talking about electronics. Now, if you want to see my last video, go ahead and click the video box over here. I'm sure you'll love it. My name is Elemento, and this is Technoscope.
TechnoScope is a TwistedCurve production.